Would you believe that in the mid-1980s, a man came forward claiming he had replaced Nikki Sixx and that the band hoped nobody would ever notice? And what if I told you he was willing to take that story all the way to court? Because here's the wild part. The more you dig into what Matthew Tripp said, the stranger, darker, and more confusing this whole thing becomes. And in about 60 seconds, you're going to hear the detail that made even longtime Crüe fans stop and go, "Wait, what?" In this video, we're going to walk through how a Florida man with a criminal record suddenly claimed he was Nikki Sixx, why he said Mötley Crüe's management recruited him, the lawsuit he filed in 1988, and the one detail that, if his story were true, changes everything about the Shout at the Devil era. But before we get to that, we need to talk about who Matthew Tripp even was, because the answer to that question is the first red flag. Matthew Tripp grew up in Florida, in and out of trouble, drifting from place to place. He wasn't a musician, he wasn't a songwriter, he wasn't hanging around the LA scene. But he did have two things going for him. He looked vaguely like Nikki Sixx. He desperately, obsessively wanted to be part of the metal world, and one day, he claimed that dream came true. Tripp said that sometime around 1983, Mötley Crüe's management approached him secretly, pulled him aside, and said, "We want you to play Nikki Sixx, because the real Nikki can't." No contract, no proof, nothing on paper, just that claim. And that's where things start to go from strange to almost impossible. Because the next part of his story, that's the moment fans usually say, "Okay, if that actually happened, where's the evidence?" And that's the point. There isn't any. But that didn't stop Tripp. Tripp stated that he joined Mötley Crüe during the Shout at the Devil era. He recorded bass lines for the band. He toured as Nikki Sixx. He even wrote songs. And then he was quietly fired and replaced by the real Nikki again. When people asked him for proof, Tripp always said the same thing. Management covered everything up. And this is where the story gets incredibly messy, because he didn't just make these claims in interviews. He took them to court. I'll show you what he wrote in his lawsuit in a second. But to understand why he filed it, you need to hear the part of his story that almost nobody talks about. Tripp claimed that Nikki Sixx had been injured, or worse, and that Mötley Crüe's management replaced him temporarily rather than cancel shows or studio sessions. This is where his tale takes a sharp left turn into conspiracy territory. He insisted he was paid under the table, never credited, and told to keep quiet. And whether you believe him or not, this narrative stuck around for decades, because on paper, Mötley Crüe was a chaotic band, drug abuse, car crashes, ER visits. It was absolute madness. And Tripp used that chaos as the foundation for his version of the story. In 1988, Matthew Tripp filed a lawsuit claiming he was owed royalties for songs that the real Nikki Sixx had supposedly taken credit for. The suit was filled with personal claims, alleged timelines, assertions that could never be verified, and no supporting documentation whatsoever. The case didn't go anywhere. It fizzled out almost instantly. But the fact that he filed it at all, that's what cemented this story into rock and roll folklore. Because now it wasn't just a crazy rumor, now it was a legal event. But here's the twist. Even after the case was dismissed, even after the band denied everything, Tripp never dropped the story. In fact, it got weirder. Tripp's claims survived because fans love conspiracies. The 80s were wild enough that anything felt possible. People were fascinated with the idea of a backup Nikki Sixx, and Tripp never broke character, not once. No recordings, no photos, no backstage witnesses, no studio documentation, nothing. But he told the story with so much conviction that it became legend. Matthew Tripp passed away in 2014, and whether he was delusional, lying, or just wanted his shot at fame, his claim still floats around metal forums, message boards, and rock documentaries as one of the strangest what-ifs in music history.